So Kris talked about the conversation between you and us. Pull requests are conversation between us and us. So we use version control. Basically, it's how we keep track of our code. So you remember back in college where you had your term paper and all your different copies of it. Maybe you have an intro that you added, you remove the intro, you want to see what's different, you page back and forth between them. That gets messy. So for programming, we have what's called Git. It's one of the plethora of version control programs. You have your one file, and you check it in with commits, you have a message, a timestamp. Your next change, you basically check in every time you make a change. You added introduction, and a minute later you cited the source for DNA stuff, technical term. Then you can go back and compare between what's changed and that. So that's a little backstory of version control. And so in our code base, we have a master branch. And every time we want to make a change, we open a new branch and compare that against master and say, hey, what's different between these two branches? Can we please pull the changes into our code base? That's basically at the top level what a pull request is. So let's go over a good pull request. I've picked one from Ramsey. And here, this is the, if you ever log into GitHub for some reason, you'll see the pull request here. You have the description. He talks about the overview of what the pull request is, testing, how he's going to test it, extra libraries and all that stuff. Very descriptive. And when you get into the code, up here in red is what used to be in the code, and below is what's changed in green. You can view it side by side or interspersed. Doesn't matter, but then you can actually see what changed. So if you have a problem with it, you can say, oh, this SEC code should be SED code or something. But you can see below on line 1024, Ramsey has added a comment, and it says, hey, this is what I did. Pam talked back and said, oh, I want to make sure. Then there's a conversation with each other about why the code is changing. Or maybe the code is wrong and doesn't work with our ideas. So that's a good pull request. Let's go into one of mine. It's a bad pull request. It just sits there. GitHub even yells at you, no description provided. I tagged it with not even ready. It sat around from May 28th till June 11th. Nobody looked at it. I just deleted it. So yeah, that's a bad pull request. What is next? So the life cycle. Kris talked about the life cycle where we talked with you guys. This is what it looks like when we're actually in our room. This is the waterfall method. It used to be you'd go top to bottom. This is what you did. So we'd code, we'd test, write our test, review the code. Here's where the pull requests really stand out in the reviewing and remediating. So basically lather, rinse, repeat. But it really looks like this. So you go to coding to testing, maybe remediate a little bit, go back and forth, and it's a big web of, okay, it's not always straightforward. So that's why we get stressed a lot. Yeah. And so I mentioned labels with not ready. Labels are great on GitHub because it basically you have a pull request and you tag your pull request. We use orange for, hey, pay attention to me. It's ready for review. We use green to say, hey, it's okay. Everyone reviewed it. We have red for either like errors or this is important, so it's not ready yet. Or I don't have any. Yeah, I have the CI don't run. We have a test server. I'll just talk a little bit about that, but that's a little flag that tells the test server to not test our code. It's great because down here you can see the RL limbs, whatever. I reviewed it, Ramsey, Pam, Kris, we all reviewed it. Morgan has a question. So it's basically, oh, instead of putting a comment like saying, I have a question, you just tag it. It's super easy. I didn't actually write anything down about this, but you can see how many people have commented in the little quote or the thought bubble things on the right. And it's great for reminders. We have little gray or light blue. If it has a database migration, sometimes we don't just change the code, we change the database, which Morgan talked about the database a little bit. So basically when we deploy, this reminds us that we need to do an extra step. I think Pam's going to get into that, so I don't want to step all over that. After labels, we have testing. Every pull request is tested every time you make a change. Sometimes if you make a change you realize, oh, that's not going to work, it's going to break. You push another test, that gets queued up in the test server. Short little video of what our test server actually looks like. So time left, the project name that's running. On the next page, you can actually view the build log. Down here is all the status of the tests, and it's a giant, long bunch of stuff that just goes through. So, don't actually know how to get out of this. Okay. Sometimes stuff goes wrong. So git blame is great because you can see who made the change on the line, and even their comment of what it is. So down here, that's actually not good at all. You got what I changed, this library. Kris added certify. Pam upgraded the version of Django. So if the versions break, you can say, hey, you upgraded this. Did you know that we were supposed to do this before? It just creates more accountability of, it's not just random, here's a code base, no attributions at all. So what does that mean for you? It means hopefully we have fewer bugs. Our code is cleaner. It's less messy and spaghetti-like of, I don't know where any of this code is. Hey. We also have better knowledge of our code base because we have a giant code base. It's definitely the biggest one I've ever worked on. And I don't know how all of it works. There's sections I've never been in. But when Ramsey's working on the checkout stuff, I can see what's changing there and say, oh, this is something I need to pay attention to. I've mentioned accountability. Maybe you've heard of Heartbleed. You can tell, like, that there was a bug in something. Here is where it was introduced, and here's who did it. So you can have accountability of, hey, did you know you made this super big vulnerable bug? Also, happier devs. We're less isolated if we communicate with each other. I've been at places where it's just me working on the project, no code reviews, just, oh, push up to production now, and it's scary because no one else looks at the code. And also, no one else looks at the code. Progress you can see. If you log into our GitHub, I don't know if everybody has accounts, I would assume not. You can actually see what we're working on. We can even point out, like, hey, here's where the change is. You can just view it on the website. You don't have to like pull all the code down to your system and get it running. And it's a lot cleaner in here. Oh, and that's it. Cool. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you have like a set day or set time of day that you all review each other's code?
As of last Wednesday, I do.
Really? When do you do it?
I now start from 9 to 10 every morning. I don't know, put it up on my calendar. Usually not. I don't know the other devs. Usually it's like, hey, I need something else to do. No, it's a lot of times it's independent unless you're like pair programming. Like if you're both working on the same thing, you're reviewing each other's code while you're doing it. Usually pull requests you review independently. But it's not like, okay, every day from 4:30, well, let's all get together and do this code pull review. So.
Does everybody review every?
So down here, you have ready for one. We also have ready for all. I did not get it ready for some. So if it's ready for all, it means everyone needs to look at it before you merge it in. But if it's something minor, like one of the char GFKs that Morgan added, only really one person needs to look at that. So in the labels.
Can you like merge it in any time, or do you usually batch things together?
It depends. Sometimes we have some that are ready for merge. There were none ready when I took the screenshot. So they'll all get merged in at once, or I don't know if I talked about merge. Did I say merging? Like when you have the master branch, you merge it and pull it back in. So yeah, it depends on what the environment is. If there's something important that needs to be alone or not. This does.
Major merges and trying to do it right.
I'll talk about that in a minute.
You'll talk about that.
Yeah. All right.